Let's grow together. And now, welcome back, Reverend Martin, please.
Like perhaps some of you, I grew up in a household in which the most important book was the Bible. And to this day, I find it very comforting and reassuring and very poetic. And one of my favorite passages comes from the Song of Solomon in the Hebrew Scriptures. And we find this: Behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. Well, this past week, we experienced the spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. It came in at 5:01 a.m. Thursday morning, March the 20th. And for just a moment, I'd like for you to imagine that you're not in Orlando right now, but you are instead in San Juan Capistrano in California. And it's March the 19th, and the mission bells are ringing. Crowds of reporters and tourists jam the streets. Mariachi bands play, a parade marches, a huge fiesta is underway, and everyone's eyes are on the skies. What's up? The swallows are returning to Mission San Juan Capistrano, and this is the city's biggest yearly celebration. The miracle of the swallows of Capistrano takes place each year on March the 19th, which happens to be St. Joseph's Day. And as the faithful little birds wing their way back to the most famous mission in California, the village of San Juan Capistrano takes on a festive air, and visitors from all parts of the world and all walks of life gather to witness the return of the swallows. At dawn on St. Joseph's Day, the little birds arrive and begin rebuilding their mud nests, which are clinging to the ruins of the great stone church of San Juan Capistrano. The arches of the two-story vaulted structure were left bare and exposed after the roof collapsed in the earthquake of 1812. The church, said to be the largest and most ornate of any of the missions, now has a humbler destiny, that of housing the birds that St. Francis loved so well. After the summer spent sheltered in the ornate of any of the missions, the swallows take flight again on the day of San Juan, October 23rd. They circle around the mission and then fly to their wintering grounds in Argentina, 6,000 miles south. And they faithfully return every year during mid-March. Now, this amazing annual event is just one of countless reasons that I believe the whole of creation is the result of divine intelligence. The idea that this could happen without a directing intelligence baffles me. This has got to be the mind of God working at the level of avian instinct. And while the swallows of Capistrano are an unusually amazing sign of spring, they're just one of countless manifestations of renewal and rebirth. Trees, shrubs, and plants, which seemed to go to sleep during the winter, start putting out buds and leaves and tiny new branches. And the entire countryside seems to be in bloom. As you probably know, a little bit north of here, there are several species of animals that hibernate during the winter. Skunks, bees, snakes, and groundhogs, just to name a few. Perhaps the most important or the most well-known are bears and bats. Bears enter their dens for hibernation in September or October, and they emerge 6 to 7 months later. If it's late winter or early spring and you're up north and find a frog that looks as if he's dead, it might be a wood frog that's hibernating. This hibernation process is amazing because their hearts actually stop beating and tiny little ice crystals form in their blood. And then, months later, when the weather warms back up, the ice melts, the heart starts beating again, and off the little frog goes. Another amazing example of divine intelligence in form and in function. Now, the interesting thing about winter is that it begins on the darkest day of the year, the winter solstice. And every subsequent day of winter, the days get longer, as if to say, hang on, spring is on its way. And so, once again, the Northern Hemisphere is waking up from its winter slumber. Every springtime, God reenacts the book of Genesis. It's been said that spring is God's way of saying, one more time. Or as Robin Williams put it, spring is nature's way of saying, let's party. The congregational clergyman Charles Jefferson once wrote, "Will you allow me to suggest a definition of the spring? It is a vast complex of tiny grass blades, blossoms, fragrances, and bird notes, all caught and held in a mesh of sunbeams. Only God Almighty can create beautiful things like that. It may be that someone who reads these lines has been in the habit of turning up his nose at the miracles recorded in the Bible. But there is no miracle recorded there that's half so amazing, so inexplicable, so wonderful as the miracle of spring." Now, here in Florida, the arrival of spring is a little more subtle than it is up north. Where I grew up in Indiana for several weeks around the transition from winter to spring, we seemed to alternate with winter days and spring days, and you never quite knew from day to day how you should dress when you're going outside. It was a while before you could finally put away your winter coats and sweaters. As Henry Van Dyke observed, the first day of spring is one thing, the first spring day is quite another. And Mark Twain wrote of spring days in New England that he had counted 136 different kinds of weather inside of 24 hours. But however it comes, or whenever it comes, there's no argument about the powers of springtime. The powers of springtime are dynamic and eternal. Now, according to Webster, spring is any period of beginning or newness. The birds know it, the rose bushes know it, but do you and I know it? Spiritually speaking, spring is any time we experience an irresistible urge for change, a time to long for something different, a time to shake off the hard winter of the old and grow into the spring of the new, a time for experiencing new life within you. You are preparing yourself for change. It's been said that it's possible to change without growing. It is possible to change without growing, but you cannot grow without changing. And so it is that spring awakens in each of us the sense of life. The life of nature is symbolic of the spiritual renewal of the seeker. The powers of springtime include the renewal of the heart, the mind, and the soul. One of the first requirements of this newness is to let go of the old habits and beliefs that are no longer working for you. It's been said that whatever has your attention has you. And when your attention is centered on the negative, it's as if you're weighed down by a very heavy overcoat, which impedes your ability to move. If you've ever seen the movie A Christmas Story, that's the you'll shoot your eye out movie, you may recall that There was a scene in which Ralphie's little brother Randy gets so bundled up in winter coats and muffler scarves and boots and mittens that he can barely move. And when he falls down in the snow, he can't get back up without help. And so it is in our spiritual spring that we must begin by casting off all of the stuff that we've accumulated during what Shakespeare called the winter of our discontent. Think of it as spring cleaning, getting everything ready for the new. The beautiful journey of today can only begin when we learn to let go of yesterday. And that may involve cleaning out and clearing out a lot of dead rubbish. Here are just a few things to keep in mind as you prepare to enjoy your personal spring. Start every morning by giving thanks for this new, clean, uncluttered, untarnished day. This will help clear away any leftover feelings of dread or apprehension. If you experienced disappointments and mistakes yesterday, cancel those thoughts immediately. Clear your mind of all fear, anxiety, and tension before you attempt to do anything else. Consider this brand new spring day a priceless gift from God. See it as an opportunity to go forward, not backward. Remind yourself that Spirit is with you at all times. Accept this day as a wonderful gift given to you so that you can express life more fully, so that you can experience more love. You can be more joyful in every situation. You can blossom and bloom into the you that you are created to be. And as you move through your day, remember to give thanks for whatever you encounter, realizing that it's all part of your process of new growth. This release of the old, worn out attitudes and the adoption of a consciousness of gratitude is the spiritual equivalent of plowing the field. During the winter, the ground becomes hard and resistant to the process of growth. Plowing the earth loosens the soil, making it receptive to sowing seeds. It allows the waters of life to soak into the ground. The process of turning over the earth aerates the soil, allowing the very breath of life to enter into it, allowing the seeds to become seedlings. In the Hebrew scriptures, Jeremiah tells his followers, "Break up your unplowed ground and do not sow among the thorns." Now, this phrase, unplowed ground, is in the Hebrew the noun near, which means the untilled or fallow ground. It's land that could be productive, but for whatever reason, it's not been broken up or tilled or plowed or prepared for planting. The prophet was telling his people to break up that land in a spiritual sense, to plow the plowable land that they have. Because unplowed land will not let a crop grow. Its hardness prevents seeds from penetrating, germinating, and growing to maturity. When it's time to put in the garden, we get out the rototiller and turn the soil so that the seeds can get into it and let their roots down deep where nutrients can be found. Jeremiah tells his followers, "Break up your unplowed ground and do not sow among the thorns." In other words, they were sowing seeds, but because they didn't bother to prepare the soil and pull out the thorns and the weeds, the seeds had little effect. And spiritually speaking, these seeds are resentment, envy, hatred, pessimism, doubt, fear, anger. Any negative emotion that interferes with the growth of the good things we want out of life. Pulling weeds is hard work, but it must be done if we want to move into a better future. And so it is that the hardness must be broken up. Where is the hardness? In your heart. I'm not talking about being hard-hearted, although that's a problem for some people. I'm talking about building walls around areas of your life to keep out things that we don't want to deal with. For example, if you've been badly hurt in a relationship, you may have sealed off that area of your life because it's just too painful. But you need to be open to breaking up those old hurts and resentments, to heal your life and to move on. Sometimes we've been hardened by unbelief, or more likely, erroneous beliefs. You've come to the conclusion that you'll never be in a loving, nurturing relationship. You've decided that you don't have the talents or the attributes to be successful in life. Perhaps you've decided that more often than not, things just don't work out for you. Those negative, hard beliefs must be faced squarely and broken up if you are to successfully plant something new and fruitful in your heart. You may have heard of something called stinkweeds. These are a particularly noxious pest. Stinkweeds are every bit as nasty as their name suggests. Well, I refer to negative attitudes as thinkweeds. It takes hard work to eliminate thinkweeds. And that's why you'll find large sections in any bookstore devoted to positive thinking. It requires work. You'll not find any books on how to think negatively. That's as easy as falling off a log backwards. Weeds will grow anywhere, in exhausted soil, under very bad conditions. And if you don't work the gardens of your mind, you'll end up with mostly weeds. If you don't decide what to grow, you'll end up mostly with weeds. Negative thoughts can grow anywhere. They don't need any special care. They thrive in bad conditions. But weeds choke out the good things that are trying their best to grow in our lives. And good things are always trying to grow for us. The least we can do is pull some weeds and help them out. The poet William Wordsworth wrote, "Your mind is your garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. The harvest can either be flowers or seeds or weeds." But there's another side to this. Fallow ground is unused ground. Maybe there's a plot of land, a part of your life that you've never gotten around to cultivating, planting, and harvesting. It's there, but it's wasted. Perhaps you've put off plowing this piece of land because it seems too difficult or too painful. Perhaps you can't envision the fruit that can grow there, so you've never bothered. But it's never too late to turn unproductive ground into a blooming garden. If you break up the fallow ground in your life, new growth is always possible. Just ask Colonel Sanders, Grandma Moses, Martha Stewart, Judi Dench, or Julia Child. They were all late bloomers. You could be next. Spring is a great time to rededicate the tracts of land that comprise your life and put them under cultivation for the good of yourself and all those in your world. Now is the time to break up those unplowed fields and turn them into healthy, productive gardens. Having prepared the soil, it's time to plant the seeds. And here is where we make our most important choices. What shall we plant today? My great-grandfather grew up on a farm, and he maintained a small family farm until he was well into his 90s. And he once told me that when he was a boy, children from farm families went to school only until the 5th or 6th grade. They went to school just long enough so that they could learn to read the seed catalogs that came out every winter. It was important that they be able to make intelligent decisions about what to plant, because all of life begins with seeds. The seed contains within itself creative intelligence. A seed in your hands is dormant until it's given the right conditions, placed in the right environment, and an atmosphere conducive for the proper development of the seed. A seed is a small embryonic plant enclosed in a covering called a seed coat, usually with some stored food, and it has enormous potential to develop. As human beings, we have seeds of greatness embedded within us. All we need to do to awake the giant within is to identify and nurture those seeds, provide them with the right amount of light, water, and properly prepared soil. Tending your garden properly will cause growth such that a single seed can give birth to the world's biggest tree. Tending your garden can result in a tree that produces other seeds, multiplying your potential for greatness. It's been said that you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed. God has packed tremendous potential into every seed, but it's up to us to plant it, to take care of it, to nurture it. We begin by planting it. Ernest Holmes, writing in the Science of Mind textbook, told us, if a gardener holds his seed in his hand and says, tomorrow I am going to plant this seed, his garden will never start growing. Holmes used to say that it's up to us to plant the seed, to nurture the seed, but that it's up to God to take care of the growth. When you plant a row of carrot seeds, you follow the directions, you cover them with earth, you do any necessary watering, you get rid of any weeds, and then you relax. And in due time, you'll harvest a row of carrots. Of course, you can't see the actual carrots, they're underground. If you were to dig them up every couple of days to see whether or not they're growing, guess what? You'll be going to the store to buy carrots. When we do our treatment or affirmative prayer work, the same principle applies. We need to do our part and then relax into knowing that the law of mind is doing its part. It's no good picking at it, fretting over it, or being impatient with it. When we say, and so it is, we need to really mean it. It is done in the mind, and it is showing up as our physical or experiential reality, and it's showing up in divine right time and in divine right order. We need to develop the faith of a grain of mustard seed, the faith that we've planted and cared for, and what we've planted and cared for will produce the plant we desire. Of course, our gardens need one more thing to flourish and bloom: rain. Without watering, springtime is not springtime. Be patient, wrote the Apostle James, always aware that the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, and how patient he is for the rain. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord is near. Too often, we look at the rain as an inconvenience. Oh no, it's a rainy day. But The rain in our lives is as indispensable as any other part of the growth process. When I was a kid, we used to sing an old hymn called Showers of Blessing. There shall be showers of blessing. This is the promise of love. There shall be seasons refreshing, sent from the heavens above. And if that doesn't float your boat, here's how Dolly Parton put it. The way I figure it, if you want the rainbow, you've got to put up with the rain. Several years ago, my crew and I did a tour of Arizona from January 31st to March the 2nd. 29 shows in 27 different theaters in 31 days. And every day, getting from point A to point B, we traveled through desert terrain, sand and stone, stone and sand. And then one night we had a 2-hour rain. And the next day the desert was ablaze with millions and millions of wildflowers, the most spectacular floral display I've ever seen. Showers of blessings indeed. Well, Spirit is ready to shower us with blessings too. But we must be ready to receive a larger share of good than we're now accepting. Ultimately, spring is about growth, and our personal growth is job one. When growth ceases, decay begins. The universe is waiting for us to grow into a larger expression of life, a more beautiful blooming of Spirit's magnificence. And so it is spring. The spiked green leaves push through the ground. One morning you find a bright yellow daffodil opening up in the midst of its green halo. More golden flowers will appear until the plant reaches its full glory. You can't stop the process unless you uproot the plant. The hidden bulb has its stored agenda, which is to live, to bloom, to die, and then bloom again. There is one mind, and we are all daffodils, dudes, and dames in that one mind. We participate in the life cycle which endlessly reproduces life. In nature, the inevitable cycle continues, and so it is with you and me. There is one difference, however. Unlike the swallows of Capistrano or the lilies of the field, we can choose to channel our energy into the fullness of life, or we can stagnate and stifle our life's blossoming. The arrival of spring is a drama that unfolds each year when the world breaks forth into new life and the birds, the flowers, the trees proclaim the glory of creation. And likewise, the seeds of change, the seeds of newness are in each of us, waiting for us to till the soil, to nurture the seeds, and to patiently await the perfect result. When you add to the seeds of springtime the powers of springtime, the plowers of springtime, and the showers of springtime, you will have the flowers of springtime. And when is springtime? Anytime you decide the new, the fresh, the growing. Anytime you decide to plant the seeds of what you want and then nurture those seeds until they sprout, grow, and blossom into manifestation. Material growth is spontaneous, but spiritual growth is the result of self-effort. The flowers of the field neither toil nor spin, but we grow by the God-given power of choice and purpose. And unlike the flowers and the trees, we have the ability to blossom in all seasons. The spirit of springtime teaches us to have beauty in times of ugliness, to have joy in times of sorrow, and to have love in times of hate. Gary Zukav says the spring wakes us, nurtures us, and revitalizes us. How often does your spring come? If you are a prisoner of the calendar, it comes once a year. If you are creating authentic power, it comes frequently and very frequently. Remember, there are times when we have to let go of the old season and walk into our new season as the spirit of springtime is upon us. Let us remember the spirit of springtime brings forth new life, rebirth, new beginnings, and new blessings. I close with a poem by William Arthur Ward. It's ostensibly about springtime, but he gave it the title Springtime in Your Heart. If you can feel the beauty of a tree without its leaves that wave or birds that sing, if you can close your eyes and clearly see not branches cold, but sleeping signs of spring, if you can look beyond the wind-swept scenes of barren trees and lonely wintry art, if you can view the browns and see the greens, then you are holding springtime in your heart. Namaste.